Welcome to Secrets from the Saddle podcast. I'm Selilwitulh, your host, fellow cyclist, bike club founder, cycling coach, bike race junkie, just truly super passionate about cycling. My journey with cycling started 20 years ago when I opened a spin studio, started a women's race team, and founded a women's only cycling club called Cycle Fit Chicks. I'm super thrilled to reveal all aspects that make the world of cycling operate. I'm so excited to be able to bring you interesting people from around the world, pro cyclists, recreational cyclists, coaches, event organizers, bike shop owners, everything and everyone you need to know or ever wondered about when it comes to cycling. I know you'll enjoy this episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Secrets from the Saddle, All Things Cycling Podcast with your host, Selilwitulh, and just sporting my UNBOUND Gravel XL t-shirt that I got from participating as a rider, a racer at UNBOUND XL 2023, where I almost finished the course. That's right. I missed the last cutoff at 11 p.m. on Saturday night. I was told to leave the course. I did. I had 45 miles left to go. I should have gone. I should have went for it. I should just went and finished the race. I don't know what I was thinking. And I just remember saying, hey, Sylvie, I said I was going to finish this race and it wasn't going to be pretty. And it wasn't going to be pretty if I had finished that race because it was horrific. If anybody has ever listened to or watched the videos of this year's 2023 Mudfest, it was horrific. Those 200 milers have nothing to complain about compared to what was on the XL course. We had the mud at night, we had the mud in the morning, we had the mud in the afternoon, and we had the mud finishing. I didn't get to see the finishing mud. But anyways, so I went out there to finish and I got 45 miles from the finish. I should have went for it. But anyways, this episode is going to be epic. I was able to bump into Rach McBride at the expo area at UNBOUND Gravel. It was amazing. Able to get a photo with Rach was epic. I'm going to be sharing that photo on my socials. But the thing is that this is what gravel is all about. It's like getting to know people, getting to see them every once in a while at these events. And they are just an amazing human. Rach has been on the episode before, on the podcast before at 199. So you can go back and listen to our first chat together. However, I asked Rach to come back and talk about her experience racing with the non-binary category. Last year, Rach raced with Lifetime Grand Prix as one of their athletes. This time, Rach stood on the start line with the non-binary category. And I asked if Rach could talk about her experience being in the 200 miler. It was an epic race, as you know, through all social media. But what was it like for Rach? I hope you enjoy this episode because just comparing our two experiences, you will find like everybody goes through something different. I can just imagine. So I hope you enjoy this episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Secrets from the Saddle, All Things Cycling Podcast with your host, Selilwitulh. And we have the amazing Rach McBride from Vancouver, who's our fellow pro cycling Canadian. Yay! And so before we get into it, I interviewed her last year, probably maybe about this time, maybe a little bit earlier, episode 199. So if you want to go back and check out that one, you can. But I got to meet this amazing woman, non-binary, sorry. Can I say that? We had this
No.
discussion before. No.
Yeah, no, yeah. So I don't identify as a woman. I identify as
Okay.
non-binary. My pronouns are they, them.
They, them. Okay, this amazing human. I can say that.
That's perfect.
All right. At Unbound. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I mean, how could you not miss like your hair, the tats, and just like your energy? And I'm like, I can't believe there's Rach. And so I went over and I got a picture with her.
Yeah.
And so that was like almost like the highlight, just being able to meet you like in person at Unbound. So why we're bringing Rach back is because she participated in the non-binary category of 200, the 200 miler in Unbound, and I did XL. Crazy, I know. And what we're gonna do is I asked her to come here to talk about what it was like to race as a pro athlete in that capacity, because we all know, and if you've seen any of the commentary or the videos on XL, or Unbound this year, it was all about the mud, is all about, you know, controversy around that and maybe doing some, roundabouts or whatever. But I wanted to bring her in here and see, we both got our shirts on. Yay. To talk about what it was like for Rach in her event
Their
or
event.
their event. Um, so let's start.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah, it was a really interesting year this year, a little bit different than last year. I was part of the Grand Prix last year,
mhm,
so there was like it was a strange mix of like I'm racing the pro women's field, but I'm also racing in the non-binary category. This year, I didn't join the Lifetime Grand Prix, and so I'm just racing with the non-binary category. And what they did differently this year was separate the start. So it was a pro men start, then the pro women start, and then the rest of the field.
right.
And so I chose to start with the rest of the field because that's
Mhm,
where my racers are, that I'm
mhm.
competing against. And yeah, it was a very different dynamic for sure than last year. Particularly, I mean, it's always just kind of like a terrifying and chaotic start when you have like thousands of riders.
Yeah.
And it's, supposed to be this neutral start until you like hit the gravel, but it's still like,
Yeah, right. But
it's
still, it's
really
like
fun.
thousands.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's just, were you able to be on the front line?
Yeah, I got up right at the front. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
At
I'm
least you
like,
got that, right? Because like
yeah,
then you can lead out and not get like tied up in the back. But
totally.
of course, like even if you're not with a Lifetime Grand Prix, you're still with like super competitive people at the front.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And so let's talk about like your whole lead up to that and your thoughts, like what was your plan going
Well,
in?
yeah, I knew from like the race last year that you really have to like go harder than you think in the beginning for
Right.
quite a while. Like I think last year my heart rate was jacked for like the first hour, and at some point I was like, I can't keep doing this. Like I have to calm down or I'm gonna like not be able to finish this race. Um, and this year I just like knew that was gonna be the case going in. I was like, okay, this is it. Like we're gonna like go hard from the start and just see where we end up. But then of course, like 45 minutes or less into the race, you hit this giant mud patch, which everybody was anticipating. I think people who were paying attention knew
Yeah.
it was going to
Yeah.
be there.
Yep.
And I had always heard the like legend of this insane Kansas Flint Hills mud,
Mud.
peanut butter mud, but I had never experienced before. And I was
So,
terrified of it.
but did you do it last year?
I raced last year, yeah, and there was like a little bit of mud, but nothing like what
Like this?
this was.
Okay.
Like last year, you just kind of like you couldn't ride it; it was too slippery. It didn't actually like go up
Oh,
your drivetrain
right.
or anything, and so you were just like walking. And it was like later in the day; it wasn't like within the first hour of the race.
Uh-huh.
Um, And so I was terrified of it ripped. Like I've heard stories of people's drivetrains just getting
Yeah.
ripped apart by this mud. And so I was like quite terrified about this.
Yeah.
Um, and it really like, it was nuts. I think we hit the mud and it just kind of felt like chaos because like everybody sort of like rode into it for the most
Right.
part. And then like, I think the smarter folks didn't ride into it and like just got up on the sides on the grass and rode
Yeah.
like that through that. And I think that
Mhm.
would have been a much smarter idea from the start because
Was those lines in the grass already there?
I didn't
Because
skip
it's not the
in.
section we went through, was it?
I don't know what the XL course, I don't,
No. Because it was like 11 p.m. when
right,
I hit this section, but I'm not sure if it was part of your section.
right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure there were already tracks like left by there were a couple of hundred riders who had already gone through there by the time
Right.
we got there. So I'm sure there were
Oh,
some
that's right, because you had the
tracks.
pros and those
Yeah.
guys in front of.
And so it just kind of turned into chaos. Like I basically rode into it until my bike wouldn't move anymore. And then I'm like, okay, so this is happening. And,
This is
you
what they're
know,
talking about.
picked my bike up, moved over to the side, like basically spent 5 seconds like scraping as much mud off of the wheels as I could, like in between the wheels and the frame as I could, so that I could at least get the bike rolling again. And then
Did you bring your spatula or
oh my
anything?
gosh. So I was like so prepared. I had it in the back pocket of my jersey. And of course, when I reach around to find it, it's not there. Like it must have fallen out
Oh, oh
in
my
like
God.
the first 30 minutes of the ride. And I'm like, of all the things, like I
Oh,
was
Jesus.
so prepared and not prepared. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I lost that, which would have been really helpful.
Uh-huh.
But basically my tactic was to um if I couldn't like actually ride the bike, I would just roll it beside myself, but I would put it in like the tall, wet grass
Yeah.
section to like kind of use a bit of the dew on the grass to like
Mhm.
what like get it rolling again and get the mud loosened up. And then when I could actually ride, then I would ride along it, along the sides, along the grass. And then like, you get like bumped back out into the mud. I'd try it again
I know.
and and just like get all gunked up. But it was funny. There was one guy that I was going back and forth with. Like I think would uh somehow he would get ahead of me, but then when we were actually running with our bikes, I would like pass him and made some comment about like, there you are, like you're so fast on like you're and I'm like I was like,
You're
I'm
like,
a triathlete.
I can run.
I can run. um and I just tried to it might not have been the most efficient thing, but I just kept trying to move forward. Like people would stop and like spend time trying to clean the mud off their bikes, and I'm like, no, I'm just gonna like push it forwards, like keep going, and just try and get through that section as fast as I could, like run with my bike when I could. Like there was no walking, it was all like running and kind of this like frantic scramble to get through that
Oh
section.
my God.
And then
Did
when I
you?
went,
Oh, sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
I was just going to say, when I got on my bike, because I had heard like how you lose your derailleur is that it's all gunked up and muddy, and then you try and shift and it just like tears everything to shreds. So I was just trying to like not touch my shifting at all, just like single speed it through the mud and be like, I was just like crossing my fingers in my head, like, please, 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 please,
Yeah.
please, stay together, bike, stay together. So I feel, and like hearing about the carnage of people's bikes failing them, I feel so lucky that at
Uh,
least my drivetrain didn't mess up.
I just remember that, like, I can't imagine because you start seeing the pictures of your race
Yeah.
and like the lines of people. I was just
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh
Yeah.
my God, because
And thank goodness, like I was at the front of the race, and so there
Yeah.
weren't that many people. We were quite spread out. Like
Uh-huh.
like it really didn't feel like you were stuck in a lot
Yeah.
behind people in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because when I hit it, like I said, it was like midnight. It's like 11:30. And it's funny, like you're
Yeah.
just biking along and all of a sudden you're like,
Hmm.
what the fuck?
Hmm.
And then you're like, and then I started seeing like the lines. I'm like, get out of the mud, go
Yeah.
on the grass. Because I was like almost by myself. There's like maybe three of us.
Okay, I
And
was
I
gonna
had
say,
just,
like, how many people were around you? Yeah.
well, there was only three at the time when we hit
Yeah.
it. Because I had flown, I didn't stop at the first stop. And like
Okay.
there was like 30 people there
Yeah.
stopped. I was like, boo, I stopped. I went pee. I changed everything over water and lights. And I'm like, out of there. But I just passed like 30 people. But then you could start, I started seeing lights. I'm like, this is really strange. I'm not that fast. I'm like, where is everybody?
Yeah.
I'm waiting. And then you could start seeing them in the distance. And then there's like lights all over and people like
Oh,
stopping
crazy. Yeah.
because then they came into the mud and we
Yeah.
were there. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, and then you start seeing people stopping for mechanicals, like broken chains, like
Yep.
spokes, like
Yeah.
derailleur, like torn off into their spokes. I was like, oh my God, that's I was
Yeah.
just like you. I'm like, okay, just like, and I brought my cleaner tooth, like that brush
Oh,
thing,
yeah. Yeah.
and I just, I just cleaned it off. I just walked it. I was just like, but
Yeah.
the thing is, you go, oh, that gravel, okay, it looks good over there. Yeah, right. Get in it. You're like, okay, now. Then you
Yeah.
collect all these big rocks on the way out. It's like,
Yeah.
I was
Totally.
like, oh my God, how long is this gonna go on for? Then you're just
Yeah, I
like,
can't even imagine navigating that in the dark. Like,
well, you didn't know what you didn't know. That's for
right.
so, like, just like,
Because
what the
yeah,
fuck is going
because also like if you're riding along the on the that grass side of things, like there
on?
was a ditch and like mud on the one side, but there was a barbed wire fence on the other
Yes.
side. And like I saw folks falling into that barbed wire fence. And as soon as I realized it was there, I'm just like, oh no, like don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. Like just stay
Yeah.
upright, moving forwards.
There
But
were some, yeah, there were some stretches where I was able to get on my bike and like go really slowly, but I was like, well, how smooth is this? There's gonna be big rocks, big divots,
yeah,
like
yeah,
you don't know
no,
what's underneath the grass. I'm like, oh,
right.
this is
Yeah.
surprisingly smooth, actually.
Yeah, it wasn't, there were sections that weren't that was pretty painful for sure.
So how did you feel like, okay, like you're in this and you're like, oh my God, like my position, like, did you have an idea, like when I say a plan, did you have an idea of where you wanted to finish? Because you finished first in your category.
Yeah. So I knew,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I knew I wanted to finish, I wanted to win.
Hmm.
I always go in to win.
Yeah.
I also like I
Mm.
as a professional athlete who like at least in triathlon races against the women's category and like last year racing in the Grand Prix and racing against all these pros, like I wanted to see where I stacked up in that field as well.
Mm.
And so I feel like I'm always kind of like pushing it to see, where I end up in like all of the categories. So my plan was really just to like try and be as focused and as smart as I could throughout
Hmm.
the whole day, and just keep myself in it. And in terms of like the non-binary category, that mud was just such chaos. I had no idea where my fellow competitors were. Like I knew that both Audrey and Apollo were like could potentially be strong competitors, and so I
Yeah.
didn't know if they were like in front of me or behind me or what, so I just kept like going wrong as like I'm just like I hope I'm in the lead. I have no idea, but
Oh
um
my God.
yeah, it was nuts. And especially like once you're out of that mud, like my bike was still caked with mud.
Yeah. It just
Like,
starts flying off everywhere. You're like,
well, it was flying off and then it just like dried and stuck on. And so I swear my bike was somewhere, it was like 30 pounds. Um, when I came into the first aid station, and my crew like literally was using like Allen keys to like chip off the mud. Thankfully my frame is okay and just
God.
but
Sorry.
I know. I was just grateful to get rid of some of that mud. Some of the crews had power washers, which
Yeah, I
is like
saw
a
that,
very smart idea, which I'm going to suggest for next year.
Just in case.
Just in case. Yeah, totally.
So here's a question for you, because I listened to some pros who kind of tied it in because they didn't feel that their race, well, this is my perspective. Like, this is how I feel, that they didn't feel that their race was going the way they anticipated to go, and then they decided not to finish. Like, how do you feel about that kind of mentality mindset being a pro athlete? Like, do you always race to finish regardless? Like, would you ever pull the plug because it wasn't going?
I'm not really that kind of athlete.
I didn't think so. You're Canadian, that's why. Sorry.
I just
Sorry to all my American listeners.
really. I feel like, because this happens in Ironman as well, of like pros who are in the races, and if they're not in a place that they, it's not going as well as they wanted, they're not like in a place where they wanted to be, then they will like pull the plug and be like, all right, I'll try again. Which, like, to me, in such a long race, and just having so much experience, like anything can happen.
I know.
So many things can happen. And I just think it is a slippery slope of that DNFing. Like, I don't want, like even just a mindset of like, oh, okay, it's not going my way, so like I'm not, I don't want to finish. And like, I just think it makes, for me, I worry that it would make myself mentally weak in a way. But on the other hand, because of just the amount of racing that we do, and the toll that the really long races take on the body, I do understand, like, if things are really terrible, why someone would pull out of the race and not finish. If they had like, another race the next weekend, or like,
if it wasn't their A race.
It wasn't their A race, or if they had other things that were like coming up that they wanted to be fresh for, and it's like, if they weren't going to place how they wanted to place in this massive race that was going to take so much out of them, it's like, when you're doing this for a living, I think particularly for like Ironman, if you're running a marathon, like that is just like so hard on your body. And so if you can avoid that and like, go the next weekend to another race that you're signed up for and go and tackle that one, like, I totally get that.
I can see that point. But I can also, like you mentioned, it's a slippery slope for the DNFs, like giving yourself that permission to not finish, and then,
and I think it just doesn't look great for our sport. I think that, like, part of
never like a DNF on your name.
No.
I hate it. I'm like, okay, wasn't my fault.
No, I mean, that's the thing. You missed a cutoff, right?
So they scratched me. I much prefer that. I've been scratched, but I don't know if that's beside my name. But the thing is that, I wasn't given the option to finish.
Right.
I could have, but they basically rolled up and say, "Hey, your race is done."
Wow.
Yeah. Like they
couldn't have stopped you from continuing to ride, though, could they?
No, they didn't. They couldn't have. They didn't. I don't even know where they went after that. But I think it was just like the thing, like, oh, okay. And I get cutoffs because that you're racing for the cutoff, so that it was part of the race.
Part of it,
And usually you don't you don't continue on. Like, they do not let you go on. Like, but the fact that some other dude did it and finished in 48 hours,
Right.
and they celebrated him at the end. I was
Right.
kind of like,
Right.
what?
Yeah.
Like, why did he get to finish? Or did he
Yeah.
just finish because he didn't like he didn't let them take him off of
Right.
course? I don't, because obviously he would have been behind me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like,
Yeah.
you know, he was still on the course.
Right.
And I finished at 12:30.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that kind of bit me a little bit, but because I didn't realize it at the time. I
Yeah.
didn't think that far because I was with two other guys, and I think that was it.
Mhm.
The influence of
Yeah.
the wife showed up. They're doing the 200, and before
Yeah.
I even knew it, they were like cleaned and changed, and I was like, "Oh,
Okay.
okay, I guess we're done." Or like,
Yeah.
you know, because we were gonna go and finish together, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just the weirdest feeling. But so like, share a little bit more about like after you finished like your transition, your keep going, and how you were feeling, because you know I know that like that was hard for everybody,
Yeah.
and just continue on because that took like what, an extra hour, 2 hours out of your time, like
Yeah. I think it
being
was, yeah,
held
maybe
up
about an
there.
hour. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe about an hour extra.
Mm. So how
Um,
did, and that right at the beginning, so
yeah.
what did the last 12 or 10 hours look like?
Yeah. I
I
know.
like, I think the longer one's way
Yeah.
easier without being like stressed of going fast. I don't
It's
know.
true. It's true. Yeah, I bet. Um, I mean, yeah, I hit that first aid station with, I knew I had a bit of a flat tire.
Oh,
Front was going flat, and like, so I had punctured it somehow, and the the sealant was like spewing out every once in a while, and I'm like, just seal, come on, please, just like seal, and
hey,
it would be
do
good
you
for a while.
have stuff that has particles in it?
No, is that the new, like, does it have like carbon in it?
Yeah, this is the one at the, I
I
just interviewed the
heard.
guy
No
for
way.
Black Ox. Yeah, I talked
Oh,
about you.
yeah,
But they have, yeah, it has carbon in it.
yeah.
And the funny
I
thing is
think
that did you pick up some?
no, but I've somebody was telling me about it, but I had no idea what it's called. So I'm writing this down.
Yeah, Black Ox. I'll send you their note. Black Ox sealant on Instagram.
Okay.
You message John, tell him I sent you.
All
And
right.
everybody else, message them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the things that I put in very last minute. I picked
Yeah.
up a bottle. No, I didn't pick up a bottle. I had a bottle from Barry Roubaix, but it had walnut chunks in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I
so I
think that's
put,
the stuff that like Panaracer uses for their
yeah, I
tires.
don't,
So that's pretty
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, so I put it in last minute, and I've been meaning, I no, actually I don't want to open up my tire because it's too hard.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No.
they say like if you had little holes, you would see like little bumps of like collective
Yeah.
mounds of things on there. Anyways, I thought
Yeah.
that would be kind of cool. So you were able, did they change your whole tire?
No, so I thought when I rolled into the first aid station, I thought that it was like under control. And so
Mhm.
I'm like, it had like sort of held itself around like maybe 20 psi. So I'm like,
Oh,
okay, if you could just pump my tires up, that would be awesome. I've had like a little bit of a flat because I think the rear was leaking as well. And I start riding out of the aid station, and probably like I think it was like 3K later, all of a sudden it just like started spewing out again, and like not good, like going really flat. And I'm like, shit, like this is not good. So I stopped on the side of the road, and I had passed this like big group of pro women who were
oh, oh,
um like
for,
coming into aid station one. I had passed a big group of pro women who were like not, I guess, not having the best of days. But I'm like, oh well, whatever. Like I'm still riding bikes. Let's like I'm
yeah, that's
still in this
right.
race. Maybe you guys have like given up,
Packing it
but
in. I'm like,
yeah.
screw this.
Yeah. And so yeah, I'm on the side of the road, and of course, like the big pack comes by me again, and I'm like, shit. Ah. But because I think that had put me into like top 10 or something in the pro women's field. And then and so I was on the side of the road and like humming and hawing, trying to figure out what I should do. I had some of that goop, that it's like a blue canister. It's called goop.
And you just blow it in?
And
blow
you
it in?
just you like deflate your tire totally, and then you basically re-inflate it with this, and it's like a foam and a CO2 all in one. So I did that, and it was like kind of held a little bit. So then I like continued riding on with this like semi-flat tire still, and maybe like and I want to say like an hour later. So like time is so weird in this thing. Like I have no idea like when
totally
these
agree.
things were happening. But basically what happened in between, my markers are like aid station 1 and aid station 2. I stopped maybe like 5 times to figure out my tire, like used some CO2s to pump it up, used the goop to pump it up. Finally, let's not get there yet. So basically was like riding on half flat tires for that whole like 5-hour chunk. At least my bike didn't weigh 30 pounds anymore with mud. But then it got really hot. I got really nauseous for some reason. I don't know why. Was like super nauseous for that chunk. And then like maybe an hour or so outside of aid station 2, the giant thunderstorm came.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So it went from like super hot to not hot at all. Like pouring rain, so dark, thunder and lightning, like scary, with like the rain, like
you're like, don't hit me.
And I'm like, please. Thankfully I had like found some other folks and we were riding together a bit. So I was like, okay, if we're all riding together, like it's still safe to be riding here. Because I used to live in Kansas for a hot second when I was an adolescent. I lived in Kansas, and I have been in the like tornado warnings, and like when the sky turns green and like the tornado sirens go off and you have to like go and find cover. And I'm just like, I hope we're okay. Like, I hope there's no like tornado coming.
It doesn't matter. You're out and who knows like where, right?
Out in the like you look around and there's like literally nothing, like little farmlands, not even farmhouses.
Like I don't even want to think about where I am. Just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. So you're like riding through these rivers. You go from like the super hot mud to like super hot to these rivers of like water streaming through on the road from all of the rain that is suddenly coming down, and there's just like no end in sight for this thunderstorm. I'm like, how long is this gonna happen? Like, this is crazy. Thankfully it tamed quite a bit, but then like I really had to stop and fix my tire. At some point I had stopped and finally plugged it. I had never used a plug before. I had only learned about plugs last year at Unbound, when like somebody was like, oh yeah, this is what you use to like seal like your tire of a bigger thing. I'm like, oh, I've never even heard of this before. Okay. So I'm like, all right, let's
give me some of those.
Yeah. So I put what they call a bacon strip.
You did those. Yeah, got those
in my tire. But then it ended up falling out. And
really?
So it ended up falling out. Or just like not staying sealed. And so I had to stop again just before aid station 2 to like really like go for it, like stick it back in. And but this time I'd run out of CO2s. But then my angel, Marley Blonsky, shows up.
Oh, I miss seeing her.
Yeah. And she was like, Rach, like, do you need anything? I'm like, do you have any CO2s? So she gives me CO2 and like totally saves the day. So I get my tire pump back up. I had a hand pump that I was about to start using, but CO2 is way faster. Get that pump back up, go. And I'm like en route into aid station 2, like a couple of kilometers out, maybe like 45 minutes out. And I'm like, I thankfully have my phone and cell service, and I'm like texting my crew. I'm texting my head wheels crew saying like, I'm going to need a tire. Like I'm going to need a wheel swap when I get into the transition. And then the rear tire started to go as well.
And the
And
back one.
yeah, yeah. And I texted it again. I'm like, actually, but I need to switch out both wheels. So they had a heads up that when I had got into aid station 2, that I just like handed them my bike and they
You're
swapped
like,
the wheels out. Yeah, but like had to swap cassettes over and
oh no, really? Oh
yeah.
wow.
But I mean, like, thankfully, like, I'm so grateful that my crew were my wheel sponsor. So it was like, of all of the mechanicals to have,
Right.
it was like the best one.
Are you
Um,
with Heed? Like
yeah,
it
I'm with Head. Yeah.
had,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
oh my God, that's
Yeah,
good.
they were amazing. So they were fantastic. So, coming out of aid station 2, I was like, new set of wheels, fully pumped tires, ready to go, cooled off from the rain.
Fed.
Yeah.
So is that when you head to the finish line?
So
Is
then, yeah,
that
with like basically the second aid station's about like 2.5 hours or so outside of the finish line. So I knew
oh
it was kind of felt like the home stretch. Yeah.
yeah, you're like
Yeah. And
blinders on.
yeah. And having like, I feel like for the majority of the race, I had not really ridden with people for
Mm-hmm.
very long. But somehow, at some point in that last section, I got connected with one or two other people. And this guy and I ended up like totally like time trialing it into the finish for the last couple of hours. And I was so grateful because that section in between, like that middle section, just being so nauseous and like
Uh-huh.
it's really hard to push through that when you're like really hot and really nauseous.
Yeah.
And so having also, I remembered from last year, the last couple of hours, like that whole section from the second aid station, I was on my own the whole time and it was so
Mm.
hot and my back was killing me. And I just remembered like I was just like praying for the finish line. I'm just like, please, like the faster we get there, the faster we get to get off this stupid bike. And
Did you
so
do 200 last year as well? I guess
yeah,
you had to, right? Yeah.
yeah, I did the 200. So yeah, it was just like it can make such a huge difference to have that like mental push for having
Mm-hmm.
someone with you and like working together. And yeah, so
Yeah.
that was I was really, really grateful for that. Definitely helped me keep me strong to the end.
Yeah, I think that's where I probably picked it up. Also, when I got some ibuprofen.
Oh
Take
yeah.
away. Like, oh my God. But like riding with those two guys, even though they're doing the 200, I'm like, okay, let's do this together.
Yeah.
And, just to keep pumped and things like that. Cause it is super, like I spent a fair amount of time by myself
Hmm.
in the afternoon, like through that heat. And I was like, my feet were killing me. My crotch was killing me. I'm like, I can't sit. I can't stand. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
You know? And because we got rained on straight away.
Oh yeah, right.
Remember like Friday afternoon when it poured in Kansas?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
Emporia? Well, we got a little bit of that, but
Yeah.
I remember looking back, I'm like, oh my God. Like biking away from that ginormous storm, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, we
Yeah.
got it red. So it was wet like the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and it was just brutal.
Gosh.
But yeah, when I finally I'm like, how am I gonna get rid of this? And I'm like, oh, maybe somebody has ibuprofen. So I asked some guys, they're like, yeah, here's some. I'm like, oh my God, and that everything numbed up. I'm like, I can like ride my
Wow.
bike.
Yeah. 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 You know what my pro tip for crotch stuff, if your crotch
Yes.
gets sore, Vagisil. It's like
What?
it's like a numbing, it's like basically it's like benzocaine that is like meant to go on your genitals and it just like numbs it. And so it's like it's not the greatest because when it unnumbs after the race, you're like, "Whoa, I really did some damage to
Oh,
myself."
don't worry. I felt that after
But
anyways. It doesn't matter.
yeah, yeah. But like during, it is money. It is absolutely,
Really?
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Okay, next time I go back and do something epic like that, I'll be because I did put some chamois. I did have my chamois cream, but
Yeah.
I left it in the field.
Oh,
Like I stopped, I was really like by myself. It was in the morning. We hit another mud patch.
yeah.
And so just fucking walking, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna stop and go to the bathroom. And I
Yeah.
just stood there with my pants down. I'm like, oh. I'm just like sunning my ass. And then
That's so great.
and I'm like, I don't care if anybody can see me. I'm
No.
so over this being in this shorts.
Yeah.
And then I left it in the grass because I was like, oh, where is it? Oh my God. And I'm like, just a second. Oh no.
Oh, brutal.
So,
Not the thing to leave in the grass.
no, and it was just sort of, I had to chuckle and I was like, oh crap.
Yeah.
And that was like in the morning. I still like had like full like 12 hours to go. And that section, I'm like, oh my God. So I came up to that was another walking section, hike a bike. And I came up, I'm like, God, it's so gorgeous. Then I look over and I see all these little people in the distance walking. I'm like, oh my God,
No.
and more of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, ugh. Anyways, but
yeah, I mean, I guess that is a good question of like, and that came up, I think, with a lot of the professional racers. Like, should they have rerouted this around?
Yeah, what do you think? I don't think they should have.
No.
I think they should have maybe like extended for us.
Oh, like for the
extended the finish time.
Yeah.
Like by a couple hours.
Yeah.
You know, hang out a little bit longer, you know. Like it's 3 a.m, might as well just stay till 5. That's the difference.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I fully knew that there was going to be mud because I listened to a podcast episode. They were covering the gravel guru. I don't know if you caught that before the weekend. And they were talking about each course and what was on it and what to expect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I listened to that when I was driving down like about 3 times. I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So there's going to be like a really sharp 90-degree turn. There's going to be lots of mud. I'm like, okay, I need to get this cleaning stick. I had one, but it's funny because you know that the one with the teeth on it and the bristles.
Yeah.
So when you have a 12 speed, it doesn't fit between the cassette because they're thinner. Yeah. I was like, what? So I bought the other one, but I never got any mud on my derailleur.
Yeah.
Or my cassette.
Yeah.
Because I waxed it. And cool. Or my chain. Yeah. And my girlfriend had mentioned that. So it was recommended. And so I did it, and that was great, but everything was just gunked up everywhere else. So they were like giving little tips like that. Yeah. And what to expect. So I was like, okay, we're going to be dealing with this. And
well, yeah. And I think that's the thing. It's like, this is part of Unbound. Like, know that if there is rain before racing,
there is mud.
There is probably going to be mud. It is part of riding in the Flint Hills. I don't think they like purposefully take you through like giant sections that could be mud. It's just like, it is what it is.
And honestly, I think it's because it's not just a section. I think it's because it's been rained on enough. It's just muddy. Like, where are you going to find better gravel? Like 2 kilometers over? Probably not. Right. It's going to be the same shit.
Yeah, seriously.
But it was kind of interesting listening to people. Like, what was your take on it when?
Well, I was just like, to me, this is part of gravel racing. This is part of Unbound. You're not going to it's not like riding on pavement where it's all going to be like smooth sailing the whole time. And
fast,
like,
right?
And fast. And like that you're going to be able to ride your bike the whole time. Like, it is a challenging, like, this is part of it. This is part of gravel racing. So yeah, I think it would be boring if like they were like, oh, we can't ride this part, so we're gonna
that wouldn't be competitive spirit, I don't think. Or not something. Yeah.
Or like this section's like,
too hard for them.
It's a little bit too hard. Yeah. So no.
I think I totally agree with you. Like, you're going there for the experience, and this is part of it. And, it's not going to be handed to you.
Right. Yeah.
You had
Yeah.
to work for
Yeah.
it. I was
Yeah.
like, and I was just thinking about that. We're at work for this finish.
Yeah.
Like, oh my
And
God.
yeah, and I've been thinking too, like, would my opinion be different if like the mud had taken my derailleur out, or if like I had had like a day ending
Yeah.
mechanical? And like, I really don't think so. It's easy to say from this side of things, but
Yeah.
I do honestly believe that, like, especially for Unbound, especially for like, this race has been around for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Know the type of environment that it is in. It's not
Yeah.
like this is anything new and like out
Right.
of the blue, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. I totally agree. And I love the fact that it was challenging. And
Yeah.
I just remember thinking to myself, because I was starting to pass girls that are pulled, like decide to quit,
Mm,
or they had a mechanical, and I'm like, oh my God, my this is good. This is getting better for me.
mhm.
Like my odds are looking good. Now I
Yeah.
just have to finish, like.
Yeah.
And but the thing is that I just remember passing one girl. It was like a steep, like gravelly uphill, and I was like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm just getting a call for a pickup." And I just thought to myself, "Pickup where? We're like in the like, where are they picking you up?"
Yeah.
Like, what road are they gonna, and how far are you gonna have to go to get out of here? I'm like, I
Yeah.
never want to be in that situation. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's so crazy. And I'm like, and I was just like, I don't know where I am. Like, how could I decide to quit in the middle of like Kansas? I'm like, I really did not have anybody to pick me up. Like I
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
did, but like I had a couple numbers, right?
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
no cell reception.
No.
So
No.
I'm just like, Sylvie, you gotta keep going.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah. Yeah.
just, how did you feel after, like, well, you had some really great photos for your finish, but how did you feel like after? Like, I was kind of like, oh my God, that was the toughest shit I've ever been through.
Yeah. I for some reason, like, quite like last year my lower back started hurting in the last couple of hours of the race, but this year
Mm-hmm.
it started like within the first 3 hours. So it
Oh,
was like 10 hours of like being in pretty bad lower back pain. And so like afterwards it was just like I was incredibly stiff. Um just I my legs were absolutely fried, like
mm-hmm.
completely trashed. Um,
Trashed.
trashed. And it's like, I don't know, just I guess I'm like, I feel pretty experienced of like racing a lot of like 9 to 10 hour races with Ironman that like
Right.
you usually feel quite nauseous. That you need to eat and that you're like actually super hungry, but like you don't actually
Lonnie.
feel like eating anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and like the next morning just feeling super groggy. But like ultimately I was really proud of how I raced.
Mm-hmm.
I was really proud of just like getting through it and really happy with my finish. Um, and and just like, so to me, racing gravel, like I really do feel like it is a family to me, and
It's
especially at Unbound, I felt so surrounded by like love and support and like acceptance and just like people who see me for me. Um,
mm-hmm.
that and my crew, like my sponsor, they are just like really unbelievably wonderful people. And I was just so grateful for their help and support. Like I could not have done the race without them. That, it, I just I was just like euphoric in a lot of ways, just like really, really happy with the
Yeah,
day. Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's done.
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah, oh my God. No, is that from an underlining
No,
injury,
I'm
or it's
not.
just
No, I'm not really
just
sure. I mean, I don't spend like, because I'm still mostly training for triathlon, most of
right?
my training is on the
Mm.
TT bike. And so I had like one 6 hour ride on my gravel bike. as my training for
That's okay.
sure. Yeah, totally.
That's 6, you know?
So I had a couple more longer rides last year under my belt before Unbound, so it wasn't as bad. So that was probably part of it. It was just like not spending as much time on the bike. I'm not exactly sure, and it definitely has like continued. I'm still dealing with a super tight lower back because I had to once the once I finished the race, I had to drive the 33 hours back to Vancouver over the next week. So
Oh,
like I was basically like for
wow.
5 or 6, no, 7, 6 days after, like every day in the car driving back, which was not the greatest for my body after such an effort.
Whoa, because I drove from Montreal. I drove from
Oh yeah.
Toronto, from
Yeah.
Ottawa. So that was
Yeah.
24. I can't like I think that was like enough
Yeah.
for me. But I
Yeah.
like I drove back and I stopped and
Yeah.
camped and I
Yeah.
drove a little bit and camped and just like got
Yeah.
my way back there. And
Same.
yeah, I was okay by the time I got back.
Yeah.
Like my legs were in pain by the time I left. My knees were sore.
Yeah.
And I think it was because like of all the mud, I was just like jamming them into the cleats. And
Yeah.
so I don't think they were like the straightest. Like they were like, you know what I mean? I'm just like fucking trying to get my foot into my pedal.
Yeah.
And then I can't get it out. And I'm like, "Ah." But I was like, yeah. It was
Yeah.
like the neck, the back.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. And no, the neck. Totally. Yeah. It is really incredible. Like just the aftermath of that kind of ride. But to
Yeah.
be honest, like it was my lower back and my crotch. My crotch, yeah, like totally took at least a week to,
Yeah, I was saying by the time I got home, it was kind of healed.
yeah.
Like just sitting in the car for like not
It's,
riding
yeah,
my bike.
yeah, it's definitely a thing. Yeah. I told my coach after the race, I'm just like, I please, like a couple of days just off the bike. Like I can't sit on the bike.
No, must go on. Well, I went back to Toronto and did a charity ride, like 100K Saturday and then 125 Sunday.
Oh
And
wow.
but it was like really low key 100K, you know,
Yeah.
like bike 25 pit stop,
Oh
25 pit
nice.
stop,
Yeah.
eat, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And so and the same way on the next day, so just riding with friends, so nothing like, you know, intense, which
Yeah.
was kind of nice.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, I don't know how it's gonna pan out.
Right.
But I'm like, Jesus, but I was okay. But so I wanted to ask you, because last year when we talked, you were getting right into Unbound, not into Unbound, into Lifetime,
Mm,
and completely moving a little bit away from triathlon and getting into, I remember you were starting to mountain bike, like learning how to mountain bike and
yep.
getting on a gravel bike, and it was all super new. And so I just had to ask like how that like because you had really great results and you did everything. And but I know I also saw that you had took a little couple of spills on your
Yep.
mountain bike
Yep.
learning. But how was that like last summer, like that different transition from like triathlon to doing that whole series?
Yeah. I last summer was like honestly, last year was like one of the best years of my life.
Was it awesome?
Absolutely, hands down, for so many reasons. And I think one of those was just like a little bit of that, like, at least in a mentality, step away from triathlon and like
Mm-hmm.
being forced and having the opportunity to do some of these crazy things like Leadville 100, like racing mountain
Yeah.
bikes. Like never in my life would I have dreamed that I would be doing that. But I'm like, but it was like, okay, it's part of the Grand Prix. Like I have to do it. And it was such an incredible experience because I also not I thought that my season was going to be like taken over by like the Grand Prix, but I fit in a lot of triathlon and I kicked
Hmm.
ass at a lot of
Yeah, you did
triathlon.
really well.
Like I won 2 races, got great results at like the PTO open races, like just really had an incredible season and got to race like 5 weekends in a row of all the things. It
Oh my
was like
God.
so amazing. I just, yeah, it was like a really, really incredible experience. And like, I wasn't super new to gravel racing, but I was new to gravel racing at this level.
That, yeah.
And like these distances, like I'd
And the
never in my
intensity
life.
too, like.
And yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, the mountain biking was just like an exponential learning curve. And like, I'm so, the best thing that I ever did, one of like the highlights last year was doing 2 weeks before Leadville 100, they have the stage race. So I got in and was able to do the stage race, which is basically the 100 course broken up over 3 days.
Oh, that's a great
And
idea.
so I got to like ride the whole course, race it, see where I stacked up. Like Crystal Anthony and Kristen Legan were there. And so like the three of us were kind of like racing together all as part of Grand Prix folks. And made like massive mistakes, especially on the first day. I had my tires like totally over pumped and
Oh,
forgot
well, that's okay.
like,
You would. What kind of ride was that?
yeah, it was terrible. I was like, why? I'm like, I swear I have bike handling skills. Like, how am I slipping and sliding all over the place? Plus, on like for the first like hour of the race, I'd forgotten to like put the suspension on my front.
Oh.
I had like locked it out. And so like the first technical descent, I totally went down and was like, so mad. After that first, like, and completely, I had the week or 2 weeks prior had crashed at Crusher and the Tusher and had like scraped up one elbow on one
Ooh.
of the descents. And then like 2 weeks I had just healed that and crashed at the stage race on the first day, scraped up the other elbow. And so I was just like, road rash, it's like super
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah.
And I sat in my hotel room that night and was just like crying and was like,
Oh.
I am like, this is so terrible. Like, I'm so sick of being like having scabs all over myself and like being in pain. But thankfully I got some tips on like correct tire pressure for mountain bikes. And the
Were
other
you
two,
there by yourself or were you with
yeah, I
a?
was there by myself. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so the other 2 days were like way better, and I just thoroughly enjoyed myself and was really surprised at how well I did. And so yeah, but that was definitely like one of the highlights and lowlights of my year last year.
I know. I remember seeing you go down like, oh boy, because you
Yeah.
were going out riding. I think you did something on a training ride, like around your house, or maybe it was
Oh yeah, yeah,
Usher.
yeah. I mean, there were so many things. So I mean, that's like February. I started off my year. One of my best friends took me mountain biking. He's a great mountain biker, and I crashed going up something, like basically kind of fell over, but I hit my knee so hard that I bruised my patella. So
Ooh.
I could not bike or run for like 2 months starting in like January. And like then was racing the Ironman World Championships in May, had like couldn't bike or run for this giant chunk of time while I was healing
Oh,
my
wow.
knee. So yeah, mountain biking, like really, I have a love-hate relationship with it because I hurt myself so much, but I love it. I absolutely love it. And now I see why like people travel all over the world with their mountain bikes, like going mountain biking, because it is just,
Yeah.
I mean, the like just the level of focus, it's one of it, it's like you're so in the zone when you're mountain
Yeah.
biking. And it's like the cool, like so like neat trails that you can go down and like ride. I don't know, it's just like beautiful places that you can go that you can't get with anywhere else to like
Yeah.
anywhere how else, like, yeah, it's just a very, very cool. So I'm a little bit sad to not be mountain biking this
I was
year.
just gonna ask you if
Yeah.
you've tried to add any of it
No,
into
I'm
there.
not allowed.
You know,
Coach
no,
says
not this
no.
year.
Yeah.
So is this year like focused Just like on your back to your triathlon with a little bit of sprinkling of gravel?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like triathlon is still technically paying the bills. Like with no money
Right.
in gravel racing, it is really
Mhm.
hard to make a living at it. And that's, where my career has focused for the past 12 years.
Right.
So financially, it still makes sense for me to continue racing triathlon. I still love the sport, absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think because of my such success last year, with the like 270.3 wins, like that was huge for me. And I think my coach and I are just trying to like continue with that momentum and flow, and try and just like continue to kind of crush it in the triathlon scene as long as I can.
Look at this. As long as you can.
As long as I can.
Now here's a question.
Yeah.
So then what's the next plan after that? I know you have to have a next plan after that, like using it, becoming a coach, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
Coaching is natural, like, or
yeah,
like
I've tried my hand at coaching a little bit. I'm not convinced that it's something that
for
I'm
you.
like, super keen on.
Mm.
But I do like I would love to stay in the sport. I actually like to be honest, I have no plan. Like my I have ADHD, and so like my future is like the next week. Like
Right.
I am not the greatest. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. Like, we'll see what happens when I get there. Cause I don't know how long I'll be able to do this. Like, I was just at a race with Dee Griesbauer, who is 52 years old and still like crushing it. So I'm like, I could still be in this for another like 7 years, Like, I don't need to I don't need to grow up yet.
Oh, okay. Come on, Rach. You gotta have something on the side.
Uh, I mean, yeah, I think that with, I have a couple grad degrees, like I have an education. I think I'm pretty smart. I don't feel like I really need, like, I don't need like a massive amount of money to live. That's not
We
who I
have,
am
yeah.
as a person. And so, I'll figure something out. Yeah. I have a feeling it
Mm.
might be a mishmash of things, but like,
It usually is.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like
I'm
a
not
whole bunch of different things to keep you busy.
Yeah. And I think it's tough. I'm not sure if I need to wrap my head around the fact that whatever I find next is not going to be as exciting as being a professional athlete because, having a couple of different careers or like kind of studying before this
Hmm.
and then just finding sport in my late 20s and early 30s and realizing like holy shit, like all of this stuff I've been doing up until now, I was just kind of like, oh, it's all right, it's it's work, it's something to do. But then finding sport and being like, oh my goodness, my
But
like job like can feel like this, like I can love it so much and like love
yeah,
to like do this every day and like can't imagine doing anything else with my life. Like that's what I want my next career to be, whatever that is that I morph into.
well, what about sharing that love for sport with kids of non-binary,
Yeah.
like, and because you found your love in sport,
Mhm.
you could direct them into sport. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be cycling. I mean, you got swimming, running, cycling,
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
got
Like
lots of
any kind of
things.
endurance sport. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think you'd be
That's
an
something.
amazing spokesperson,
Yeah.
like to go into schools and things like that. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I have done some public speaking and things, and obviously, like,
Yeah.
saying and things like, yeah, it's definitely something on my radar for sure. And to think of something like a little bit more organized around that. And there are definitely a lot more like diversity and inclusion
Mm-hmm.
uh outfits that are doing work within the community that I could get attached to as well. So it's
I
definitely
just,
an
I would
idea.
just break out on my own because,
Yeah. I
you
know
know,
that's the thing. I like be like doing this for the past 13 years. I'm like, okay, no 9 to 5, No going.
I know. I'm just like, I'm like you too. I'm like,
set my own
what can I
schedule.
do?
No boss. I don't want to work for anybody else.
It's totally true. I totally feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like, cause like, oh, I'm going to start looking for a 9-to-5 job. Then I'm like, but I do like, and that's kind of where I'm at. Cause like, I'm doing like something on the side, but I'm doing my club and I'm doing some coaching but there's different things that I want to get into, and I know that I can't do it by myself. It's going to be part of a job.
Yeah.
And you know, if that's like a 5-year thing, that's a 5-year thing. Then I can, you know, learn from it, start doing my own thing. Anyways, that's just what I'm thinking. But I'm like you. I'm like, today.
I'm gonna give my brain dopamine today.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I'm like a squirrel.
Yeah, totally.
But I know something will land in our lab, and we'll be like, that's it. That's it.
So, yeah.
But I just want to thank you so much for jumping on the podcast again. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and I look for. Are you going to be back? Are you going back to Unbound next year?
I sure hope so. Yeah, I can't.
All right. Well,
yeah,
I have to. I have to go and finish off. Now I have to go off and finish off. Yeah, what I started. I'm just saying that Strava picture is like going to kill me. It's like missing that little section.
Oh yeah, but I'm missing the section. Damn
I'm like, no.
Oh no. Yeah.
That's gotta be finished.
Finish that circle.
That's right. That's
well,
right.
Go there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll see you there, and hopefully maybe we'll see each other, talk to each other before then. That would be so awesome. But I want to thank you, and I hope everybody enjoyed this episode, because I'm just super excited. I got to talk to you more about it. I know we saw each other in the restaurant. I'm like, I'm hungry. Yeah, me too. But yeah, so anyways, thanks so much again, and thanks to our audience for tuning in. Make sure you follow Rach. Where are you? You're on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram's the best. Rachel McBee. At Rachel McBee. Yep. RACHELMCB.
Yeah. And Secrets from the Saddle podcast on Instagram. So with that, have an amazing day, everyone. And we'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. It was pretty eye-opening for me, because we always think that, maybe it's just so easy for the pros at the top. But as we see, everyone goes through their own experience when it comes to gravel racing. And Rach's experience was no different than mine, possibly a little bit, we're serious, but we all made it through, and Rach got to the finish line. I will be going back to get to the finish line if it kills me. But I hope you enjoyed that episode. Thanks a lot, and see you on the next podcast. Bye. Thank you so much for spending this time with me on the Secrets from the Saddle podcast, learning more about sighting people, places, and things that make cycling such an exciting sport. I am so glad you stopped by today. Please leave me a review if you feel so moved to do so. I would love to hear your feedback. And if you could take 1 second to share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it, I would be forever grateful. Also, if you could please leave me a review if you feel so moved by going to iTunes and leaving me an honest thought and an honest comment, telling me what you think, and most importantly, tell me what you'd like to hear more of. It would really help me to bring more great, inspiring cycling stories to you. Until then, have an amazing day. Make sure you ride your bike. And don't forget to visit my YouTube channel if you'd like to see the full version of this podcast live.